Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. I've thrown you again. Yes, we're going early, but when the guest goes, we go. And we have a special one for you, Squaddies. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
All right, so loads of you still at work, and in the United States, you're just waking up. And so, really, this should be dominated by the Aussies. But here we are, it's early, so be sure to let us know in the YouTube comments on replay, where most of you will be listening, what you think about today's show. We got a special guest, award-winning writer, broadcaster, and all-around French football expert. Welcome back to Squad Central, Matt Spiro. Hello, mate. How's it going?
Hi, Sophie. Thank you for the nice intro. Yeah, it's going well. Excited, I think, like a lot of us, ahead of tomorrow night.
Yeah. Well, firstly, before we get stuck into PSG a little bit, I wanted to Squaddies at ease, by the way, at ease for those of you who have been able to make it. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Matt, how has the Lyon loss in the women's champions semi-final gone down? I mean, Arsenal was so convincing, ruthless in France. What's the take been over there?
I think people didn't really see it coming after Lyon won 2-1 in the first leg in London. Lyon have been so good for so long, so yeah, there's obviously a lot of disappointment about that. There was also disappointment there weren't more supporters in the stadium. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert of women's football. I did report on it quite a lot in the past, but my feeling out here in France is that the French have taken their eye off the ball a little bit in some respects with regards to women's football, and it hasn't gained, like the club game hasn't gained the popularity that it's gained in England. I think England they've done a very good job of promoting it, very good job of getting more and more people into the women's game and coming to the matches. So it's a bit disappointing there weren't more people from a Lyon perspective. There's concern now because there's a lot of financial trouble in the professional game in France. There's concern that some top flight clubs are going to be cutting the women's section. So I'd say, from a wider perspective, wow, it's a bit worrying, like with regards to the women's game. From a perspective of Lyon Arsenal, look, Lyon they've had a lot of finals, haven't they? They've won it 8 times. So about time we started to catch up with them.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting that you talk about the finances and stuff like that. And, the Barclays WSL, the way it's kind of grown and really, I would say, overtaken the NWSL. The US has always been the leader when it comes to women's football. And, even in the international scene, federations have caught up with more investment. But it really feels like the WSL is the place, for football right now. And it's going to be interesting to see if Arsenal, similarly like the men's team toppling the kings of Europe, we toppled the queens of Europe. And now let's see if, they can take on Barcelona, who were ruthless against Chelsea. But I don't know. There's something in the air, Matt. There's something in the air about Arsenal. Can you imagine? I don't want to get too far ahead, but 2 Champions League finals, Arsenal versus Barcelona, that would be insane.
It would be unbelievable. And I think it's brilliant what the women have done. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mikel uses it as well and talks to the boys about how, they've shown the way. They've shown an example by going and doing what they did. Like you say, Lyon are a little bit like the Real Madrid, aren't they, of the women's game? So yeah, it's fantastic. It bodes well. Of course, it's a totally different game on Tuesday night, but let's hope it's a happy Arsenal spring. It's
for sure.
exciting. Yeah.
Well, look, I wanted to get stuck into, there's so much that we know about PSG. You know, of course, they've got some world-class players, exciting young players. It's kind of like they went from, you know, being in the Galacticos strategic mode to now a younger team that is performing better in Europe. You could argue playing, you know, sexier football. You've still got seasoned veterans as well on the team, like Hakimi, experienced players like Marquinhos, blended with the Barcolas of the world, and they've really been fun to watch in Europe. But I wanted to kind of get into a little bit about the PSG that we saw when Arsenal won 1-0, and the PSG against Liverpool that took them to penalties. What's the difference between the Arsenal result and where they're at now? And I hear like maybe the way Luis Enrique is going to approach this game is going to be a little bit different, maybe, you know, more in line with how they played against Liverpool versus how they played against us. What's the difference?
Well, they're a really different team, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But you're right to bring it up, and I think what's interesting is it's a very recent thing, this turnaround with PSG. It can be sort of dated back to December, probably January, probably when they were on the verge of going out of the group stage of the Champions League. I was at the Parc des Princes when they played Man City, and they looked like the better team, and then suddenly City got 2 goals early in the second half. They went 2-0 up, and you're like, okay, PSG, you know, it's the hoodoo again. They're going to go out in terrible fashion, and it's like a switch was sort of flicked on in the last half an hour where they managed to get a goal back. The stadium got up, and then suddenly there was this relentless attacking football. We've kind of seen it ever since. It's almost like, you know, something like the penny dropped, if you like, in the head of the players, that they can put these teams to the sword. And they've been doing it, obviously, in the French league, where they weren't particularly prolific or winning a lot of games. But since January, they've been scoring 4 or 5 goals a game. Ousmane Dembele has just been unbelievable. And they've done that in the Champions League as well. So what has changed? I think there's a psychological aspect. I think if you look at the first game against Arsenal in October, one of the big decisions, I think, in PSG's season and in Luis Enrique's reign is that he left Ousmane Dembele out of the trip to the Emirates on disciplinary grounds. He was unhappy with Dembele being a little bit too individualistic. It's all about the collective with Luis Enrique. I think it was the game against Rennes just before Arsenal where he wasn't happy with Dembele, and then Dembele came late to training on the Sunday. So he said, "Listen, mate, you're not coming to the big game in London. You can stay at home." And I think that was a big moment for Ousmane Dembele, who obviously had the correct reaction. Like, started listening to the coach, started upping his game, started being 100% collective. And you know, he's moved into this a central role, literally and metaphorically. He plays as the 9 or the false 9, and he's taken on the mantle of Kylian Mbappe. But it's very different insofar as he doesn't need the limelight. I don't think he has as big an ego as Kylian Mbappe, and he has absolutely gone with Luis Enrique's demands to be collective. And when you watch PSG now, what I find fantastic when I watch them, particularly compared to recent seasons, is whenever they get the ball, they win it back or whatever, the first instinct of the player is to look to see who's in a better position. And that was never the case, you know, and they will invariably make the pass if the pass is on. And it's just really nice. Like you say, there's been this, you know, complete contrast in the way that they're viewed by neutrals, even because they have this very, very nice and sort of generous, the French would call it generous, way of playing football. You know, everybody kind of digs in and helps the other person. So it's Luis Enrique's philosophy. It's Dembele's role, but it's also the summer signings taking a bit of time. Maybe João Neves, fantastic. Desiree Doué struggled in the first couple of months, and he's just absolutely taken off in the last sort of 3 or 4 months. And they've made good signings. You know, Pacho has been excellent at the back, slotting in alongside Marquinhos.
Very
The
good.
fullbacks are brilliant. Nuno Mendes, another year older now, and he's sort of showing that maturity. So
we're going to get to him in just a second.
Culmination of factors, Sophie, I think. But, they were really timid at the Emirates, and they won't. I'm not saying they're unbeatable now, but it won't be the same PSG. They've got a lot more belief.
Yeah, I was really curious to dive into that part with you, because I've also been reading up on. Let me take a step back. We had Kevin Hatchard on here about 3 months ago, maybe 2.5 months ago. And Kevin talked a lot about how he felt that Arsenal were the best team off the ball in Europe. And at the time I was like, that's a stretch, and I think, mentally I was having too much of the Premier League form, in the back of my mind, because it's been so disappointing. And in the Champions League, the way we've been able to combat the injuries and our style of play. And then reading Luis Enrique's interview, I don't know if he was listening to Kevin Hatchard on the show, jokes, but he was talking about, of course, how he thinks Arsenal are great on the ball, but he said they're one of the best teams in the world off the ball. And most Arsenal fans were happy to face PSG in the semi-final rather than Aston Villa. You've got the history of Emery. He's got good results against us. Emery's going to park the spaceship a little bit. We've struggled against teams that play the low block. Now, I know that PSG don't play the low block, but with all that in mind, and Luis Enrique, who I don't know if this is sane or not, but I think he's one of the most underrated managers in Europe. It's crazy. He's won a treble with Barcelona, and he was with a guy that I wanted at Arsenal for a long time. Talk me through that a little bit. Enrique's comments about Arsenal off the ball, what you think he'll do. Do you think they'll go low blocky at the Emirates? What's your take, Matt?
I think, we talk about PSG's transformation. It's absolutely the same in terms of the way that Luis Enrique is being perceived now, because he was not a popular guy 4 or 5 months ago at PSG. He was falling out with journalists. Actually, a friend of mine, a lady called Margot, who was working as a pitchside reporter, and she asked Luis Enrique about the tactics at the Emirates, and he replied saying, "I'm not going to tell you because you wouldn't understand." And that was kind of interpreted by some, it's because it was a woman, but it wasn't that. It was just that he hates journalists, and he feels like journalists are so far below him, and he didn't want to go into it. But there were issues with the whole communication thing, and the fact that it was taking time. It really was taking some time for his project, for signs of this team to really take off. But he's obviously getting a lot of the plaudits for what's happened, and I think rightly so. I think he's very, very single-minded. Like I say, doesn't like journalists, but also doesn't care what people say about him, what people say about his team. But the players seem to really, really like him and really like playing for him. I chatted to Vitinha like a couple of months after, so last season after Luis Enrique had joined, and he was just absolutely loving it, and sort of said it's an absolute breath of fresh air to have this guy. So he's got this very single-minded philosophy. It's all about possession. He wants the ball. He wants to pass it. He wants to control the game as much as possible. And I think in that respect, PSG are going to be probably a level above Arsenal in terms of keeping the ball. So I think Arsenal, it's really important that we do show that we're so good without the football, because I think PSG will have more of it, even at the Emirates, and they'll try to play high up the pitch. I think PSG will come out, and that, in terms of Arsenal's goal scoring potential, I think that is going to suit Arsenal, because I think it's going to leave spaces, and I think in both games I think there are going to be goals. So it's going to be fascinating. I think Hakimi and Nuno Mendes will attack, and that is definitely going to play into our hands in some respect. I think what's going to be absolutely key is that we are solid, and that we are able to be absolutely solid at the back without Gabriel. And so far Kivior's done excellently, but obviously we're missing Gabriel, we're missing Partey as well for the first leg. So big job for Kivior and Saliba, big job as well for Declan, just in front of them. And obviously the fullbacks as well. I mean, yeah, it's fascinating, but PSG will go for it. They'll try to score goals at the Emirates, I think.
See, I think that's why most Arsenal fans wanted to face PSG, is because we've done well against teams like them. I just think they're a little bit more sophisticated than some of those other teams that we faced, who do like the possession-based football. And Mikel Arteta also has possession obsession. So it's really going to be fascinating. You talked about Dembele and him missing the game at Arsenal earlier on in the season. Do you think in this kind of possession fight and the way they both want to control the ball, do you think we'll miss Partey the same way PSG missed Dembele that time, or even though they're playing differently? There's a lot of Arsenal fans are afraid of the fact that the way Thomas is being able to be like a general in that midfield, also the way he's able to break the lines with his passing. Some Arsenal fans feel like this at this point, seeing how Kivior has played, will be a bigger miss than Big Gabby.
It's possible because it has knock-on effects as well, doesn't it? It's like we Declan Rice won't be able to get forward as much. Marino won't be able to play up top. So, assuming that's the way Mikel's going to go, he's going to play with Trossard as a 9 or a false 9. So I think, in that respect, the knock-on effects, it's such a silly yellow card, such an infuriating moment on what was an otherwise fantastic night. It's difficult to compare because Dembele, he's very much the attacking leader for PSG. He kind of knits everything together. He's not obviously, in the center of the midfield. So look, I think Declan Rice can do the job really well, can do Thomas Partey's job really well, but he's obviously going to have to be super careful if he does go up. That we don't get caught out and we don't have Dembele, Barcola, Kvaratskhelia running at the centre backs, because then we'll have problems.
Yeah. You mentioned Vitinha, and Lone Star listener in Texas talks about him being a top quality player. And Evgeny had a quick question for you: if he's dropped his level. What's the scoop? Has he?
I don't think so. I mean, he had a really poor game at Villa Park, and that was really unexpected. I mean, that was because he was playing brilliantly sort of up until then. And, whatever happened on that night, I think PSG maybe were a bit surprised by Villa's physicality, their intensity. Villa was so kind of inoffensive and timid in the first leg at the Parc des Princes. And, when they started getting on top in that second half, PSG really struggled. I think Emery, he put Tielemans. Yeah, it was Tielemans. He played Tielemans sort of at the top of a midfield diamond, and he got him following Vitinha. And I thought that was quite a good, interesting tactic, because Vitinha is the guy who kind of does orchestrate, pulls the strings, gets them going. And maybe that unsettled him as well. But I don't think there's been a big drop-off in general. I think it was just those 90 minutes, really. I think PSG are not quite as irresistible, haven't quite been as good in April as they were in the first 3 months of the year. And there is a bit of concern here after what happened on Friday night as well, when they lost to Nice. Luis Enrique playing his best team. Lost 3-1 at home, and they were very much, going for that invincible season. I wouldn't say they didn't care. I think a lot of players were probably guilty of focusing too much on the semi-final and not on Friday night, but it was still a setback, and one that came after that Villa Park defeat as well. So so there is a little bit of concern here about the form, but Vitinha, I think Vitinha will be fine. He's played a lot of football. Enrique doesn't rest his players a lot. So
he's like Mikel, isn't he? Really,
he is, and they run a lot. They run really. I don't know which game it was, but in general, they're running 10 kilometers further than their opponents in most games. So they're
right. Matt, is it a fact or myth that the goal scoring is like you talked about their form in April. Goal scoring wasn't an issue. Losing 3-1 to Nice at home, going that invincibility factor, that's got to have a knock-on effect. I know if it was my team, Arsenal, I know the fans would be disappointed. Just watching Bayer Leverkusen kind of, have that wave last season. Are they struggling to score goals right now?
A little bit. I think Dembele's gone 5 without a goal. Barcola's gone 10 games without a goal. Let's hope that continues tomorrow night. But is there? Yeah, no, I do think there is some concern, especially ahead of the away leg. I think at the Parc des Princes they backed themselves to score, and they've turned it on in Europe. On a pretty consistent basis, not just this year, but in previous years as well. So they won't worry too much about that at home if they need to get the goals. But yeah, I do think at the Emirates, because Kvaratskhelia as well, sensational in the first leg against Villa, and he completely, much like Vitinha, just really struggled in that second leg. So is he having a dip at the wrong time? Let's hope so, Sophie. But he's a hell of a footballer. I mean, that they've got these guys can produce moments of magic, and that's why they're so formidable. I don't get to watch a lot of Serie A, so I'd heard obviously a lot about Kvaratskhelia and seen a lot of videos, but he's a fantastic sort of old school type of player. He's got this slightly sort of crouched, haggard look about him, but another brilliant sort of collective player. And what he did to Axel Disasi in that first leg at the Parc des Princes shouldn't really be allowed.
Yeah, what a signing!
Inside out, incredible. Yeah,
what a signing he has been, and he's a fun. I was doing a show a few weeks ago, and the question was, where have the popcorn footballers gone? Because everything just seems so robotic these days. And, managers like Arteta and Enrique like that total control. But he's a popcorn player. It's funny you mentioned the crouching and stuff. It's like he's a mix of, Waddle, Hazard, and, a little bit of Ryan Giggs, all mixed into one. He's such a special player. And fun to watch. I hope he's not going to be too fun to watch tomorrow.
Can I add Franck Ribéry as well to that? Because he's
Ribéry.
Kind of got the head down, and when he gets dribbling. But it's interesting as well because Desiree Doué, we haven't really talked about him, but he's been brilliant in the last few months, and he is probably going to miss out in terms of starting tomorrow because Luis Enrique's got this choice to make, assuming that Kvaratskhelia and Dembele are two of the front three. It's a choice between Barcola and Desiree Doué, and he prefers Barcola generally in the Champions League, especially away from home when that speed, that ability to run in behind causes problems, and it did against Aston Villa. So he probably will, but it was interesting actually when PSG played at Villa Park and he went for Barcola and not Doué. I wouldn't say the knives were out, but people were saying if this doesn't work, given how incredible Desiree Doué has been, like Luis Enrique is going to have something to answer for about this. But I think he'd probably do it again.
Now, there's been a lot made of Mendes and Saka, and even our former player Aaron Ramsdale was on the radio the other day talking about them. It seems to be the matchup that most people are excited about. What matchup do you think could be a twist to the game tomorrow night?
Saka Mendes is going to be brilliant. That's certainly the case, and I think maybe if one PSG player is a bit more conservative than usual, it'll be Nuno Mendes, who is given a little bit less sort of license to get forward than Hakimi. So I think Hakimi will bomb forward up the right. Nuno Mendes will be keeping probably an eye and a half on Saka. In terms of the matchups, well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? So who would I go with? I mean, it's interesting comparing the two teams because they're quite similar in terms of the way they set up in the 4-3-3 formation. I wonder if Merino doing a job on Vitinha might be important. You know, whether he can be the guy who kind of looks to advance, whether Mikel might see that as Odegaard. I'm not sure. But I think trying to reduce Vitinha's influence is important. So if Martin is sort of leading the press, then maybe, you know, just behind him, Mikel Merino will try to quieten Vitinha. Otherwise, what could we go with? So it's going to be Bartler against Timber. We backed Timber, didn't we, against Vinicius, and he was brilliant. And Timber's,
Oh yeah, I mean,
Timber's very
been so brilliant.
He's brilliant.
He's undoubtedly Mikel's best signing, I think, so far. I think he could go down if things carry on the way they are with him. I think that he could go down as one of the best ever signings, and he's unflappable. So yeah, I think he's really important tomorrow. I couldn't pick because I think, like you said, you know, the midfield, I think is going to be where we win or lose or draw the game without Thomas Partey, who's been this season probably his best ever season since he signed for Arsenal. And Mikel Merino has been so selfless, right? And he's been great up front, but then you also saw what he was able to do, you know, against Real Madrid, his 2 assists. He's, you know, evolved so much where I did a show asking if he's one of the best signings of the season, which I think without him, we would have really struggled, Matt. I think, someone in chat said it. Who is it? I think it's Jordan who mentioned it, that Merino's the key. I think Saka's the key to everything, but Mikel Merino and where Mikel chooses to play him, Matt, I think is going to have a massive say in this first tie because we get Thomas back for the second one.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. But like you say, matchups everywhere. I mean, if Kvaratskhelia starts on the right, you know, Lewis Skelly against Kvaratskhelia is going to be fascinating as well. And if it's not him, it will be Barcola. I mean, they interchange a lot. I would like to think, even though he's been a little bit off his game in the last couple of matches, David Raya, but I would like to think that is maybe where Arsenal could win the tie, like having the better goalkeeper. And I know that Donnarumma is rated very highly in England, and that's mainly because he won the Euros for Italy against England, and
you know, I'm not sure.
Terrific against
Matt. I'm not sure if he is, because a lot of them.
Not sure. Okay,
well, they had a question for me, and I have a question for you. It's on my bit of paper here. I think Donnarumma is at times the savior, but also their Achilles heel. And I believe, you know, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's so amplified. David Raya has been brilliant this season. I don't know what happened to him in his last game, but it was, you know, maybe one too many espressos.
I'm confident he'll be okay tomorrow.
Me too. I've no fear of David Raya. And like you said with PSG against Nice, you've got one eye on that semi-final. Number one, I don't care what anyone says. You really don't want to you want to play in the biggest games of your life. Yeah, you want to go invincible, but at the end of the day, trophies matter. Like, we have a team that went invincible, but we haven't won anything since. Trophies matter, right? And they don't want to get injured. They don't want to put themselves in harm's way. Footballers' careers also short. You never know when you're going to be back there again. But for a lot of people, Donnarumma is, I was going to ask you, who is the dark horse player, right, that not a lot of people are talking about? And also, is Donnarumma the Achilles heel of this team at times, which we can capitalize on? Pepper him with shots.
He has been, in the last since he joined the club, really. But you know, he cost them a couple of seasons ago against Real Madrid. He was poor last season in the big Champions League games. They conceded in both semi-final legs against Dortmund from corners, and you know, set pieces are a problem for PSG. And I think that starts with Donnarumma and his uncertainty. Doesn't come off his line much. Doesn't, you know, when he does, he's often a bit hesitant, and made a mistake at the Emirates, didn't he, for Kai Havertz goal when he came for the Trossard sort of very nice diagonal pass. But he's done much better in the last 2 or 3 months. But if you'd have asked me 3 months ago, he was the one that PSG. I mean, everybody was talking about, who are we going to get as a goalkeeper in the summer, because we need to move on from Donnarumma. It's not good enough. He costs us too much. He's very uncertain with the ball at his feet. Maybe it's something he's improved on a little bit, but I can tell you, like, from being in the Parc des Princes, whenever there's a back pass, everybody's just like, oh God, what's he going to do? So, but yeah, phenomenal on his line. He can, the penalty shootout against Liverpool. He can have incredibly strong games when he's got a lot of saves to make. But no, I do think he's a weakness. And so who's the PSG player that we're not talking about?
Yeah, who's the dark horse player? I mean, it's funny, isn't it? When you've got a team of stars, you tend to think
we kind of. I feel a bit like we talk about everybody already, but if I was going to pick the real dark horse pick would be Fabian Ruiz, because even when we're talking about the midfield, we talk a lot about Vitinha and Neves, who are both younger than Ruiz. Ruiz, again, like 6 months ago, PSG fans would have been like, "Come on, we've got to move on from this. He's not good enough." He had a phenomenal Euros with Spain, and that left people perplexed. Like, where is this player when he puts on a PSG shirt? But yeah, he has started looking like the Fabian Ruiz of Spain, and he gives them physicality, he gives them tactical intelligence, I think, as well. And he's kind of the kind of sage, or the guy in the midfield, because you've got a lot of quite young, mad players, the fullbacks who are bombing on the attackers, and he will kind of hold his position a little bit more. He'll be able to match Arsenal, I think, physically in that midfield battle. So, I'm not his biggest fan, so I kind of hesitated about sort of singling him out. But in terms of the way PSG have improved in the last few months, particularly in those Champions League games, he's been really important.
Yeah. It's interesting because, when I think about X factors, they talk about starters versus finishers. And I don't know, there's something in my gut that tells me that whether, probably coming up, Waneri will have a seminal moment. Everything's been about Miles Lewis-Skelly, and rightly so. What a season to see him play the way he has, to see him play the way he did against Real Madrid. So I was wondering if Zaire Emery would have similar impact, maybe off the bench. That is there a finisher that you think could? Because what I think PSG have is a lot of players. I would say maybe at least four players who can change a game on a whim with one shot. Other than Saka, and I think Waneri's brave enough to take those shots, and up until Declan Rice in his free kicks against Real Madrid, which isn't a guarantee that's going to happen most games, Odegaard doesn't do that, right? We don't have, Martinelli doesn't really do that. I think PSG have those potential moments, which is why I think Waneri, I hope Mikel trusts him enough. If, we're struggling a little bit or we're not getting a goal, that a player like him who's fearless can come on and do that too. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I do think PSG have got more sources of goals in them, and Vitinha's long range shooting is something that we need to be wary of as well. Zaire Emery, I mean, he's very young, Zaire Emery, but he's kind of a seasoned pro already. He's been a regular first team starter for sort of 3 seasons, and he's maybe taken a slight step back this season because maybe it's part of his development, but he had an ankle injury as well in January that kept him out for a couple of months. So he's kind of had to work his way back from that, while this midfield trio has very much kind of established itself for PSG. So he's a future club captain, maybe even a future France captain. I mean, he's an incredible footballer with such a mature head for 19 years of age, very strong, gets all over the pitch, ball winner. I don't see him. I mean, he can be a useful substitute to have. I think if we're looking at like finishers who can be match winners, I think Desiree Doué is the guy.
I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next one. Yeah.
Yeah. We saw him come on at Anfield, and he was just phenomenal. I think he played 30 or 40 minutes, including extra time, and almost scored a couple of goals and just mesmerised everybody. Obviously scored that brilliant curler against Aston Villa. So Desiree Doué, like Warren Zaire-Emery, is 19. He did struggle a little bit in his first weeks at PSG. They spent 50 million euros signing him from Rennes, and it was looking like, this move maybe has come a bit too soon for him. But he's also a very mature guy, speaks really well, and Luis Enrique really likes him. And he's got incredible technical skills. He's a little bit Neymar-esque with what he does with his, quick feet, step overs, and what have you. And he's a guy, when you're already a bit tired with 20 minutes, half an hour to go, you don't really want to see him coming on.
All right, I'm gonna get you out on 2 here, and then I'm gonna stay a little bit squaddy, so don't go because I've got some housekeeping to do with you. We're gonna let Matt go after these next 2. Real quick, with the Nwaneri thing, and one of our listeners, Harvey, pointed it out in the chat as well. Were you surprised that he played Sterling and not Nwaneri in the Premier League game? It feels like he's not. I don't know if he trusts him yet. I hope he. I know he rates him, right? I think we all know he rates him, hopefully, but I don't know if he trusts him. There's something. I did this with Martinelli about 3 or 4 seasons ago, and I learned my lessons. I love to be wrong, but there's something about, no one had it on their bingo card that Miles Lewis-Skelly would be at this phase this season over Nwaneri.
No, and it's hard to understand the logic, I guess, between playing Raheem Sterling ahead of Nwaneri when you can, even if you're not looking to play or send Nwaneri on necessarily against PSG, you can still give him 90 more minutes or 60 or 70 minutes of Premier League experience. There's been a drop off, which is completely normal, I think, given Nwaneri's age. He was for a few weeks, he was looking absolutely sensational, wasn't he? And I think there's, I'm confident there's going to be a lot more of that to come. So yeah, I'm a bit surprised because I think it's a good option to have. I think if we need a goal, whether it's tomorrow night or the Parc des Princes, I don't think Mikel sends Raheem Sterling on, and if he does, I don't think anybody's going to be getting too excited about it. Whereas if he sends Ethan on, then the crowd are going to be really up for it, and I think PSG would be much more concerned as well. He's a player they don't know as much about. I'm sure they will have done their research on him. So a bit of a surprise, we're not on the training ground. We don't know why Mikel makes these choices. There obviously has been a drop off, like I said, in Ethan, and maybe there is a trust sort of issue in terms of what he does off the ball. I was finding it really hard. I mean, this is going back to old debates, but when Martin Odegaard was injured, I really was feeling quite frustrated and feeling that in England, and I don't want to sort of say Mikel doesn't give youth a chance, because he has proven that he can, and he's given Nwaneri his chance. But I feel in France there's so much more of a willingness just to give these guys an opportunity. Often young, Warren Zaire-Emery's played 100 odd games already. He's 19, and sometimes because the Premier League, the clubs have got big squads, they've got a lot of money. There's pressure on every game, and it is a bit harder. But I was thinking, God, this is the time that Nwaneri should be playing. But we've seen quite a bit of him, thankfully, this season.
I think he'll have a role to play. Something in my gut tells me off the bench somehow. Right, let's get you out on who you fancy getting to the final, what you think's going to happen in this game. Looking to your crystal football, Matt, and give us your predictions.
I've been asked this quite a lot in the last 10 days or so. And,
I bet you have.
my stock answer has been it's going to be really close. I've got a feeling it's going to go to the wire. I think there's a lot of similarities between the clubs, like both PSG and Arsenal looking to win the Champions League for the first time. Fairly similar sort of possession based, football, 4-3-3, Spanish coach. So look, my head says it's going to go all the way to the wire. My heart says Arsenal are going to do it. I think tomorrow night, I think a 1-goal lead is good. I think it gives us a good chance. I've seen a lot of teams suffer at the Parc des Princes, and I would worry about it. But given the steel that we showed in the Bernabeu, and given our ability to stand up, I think we can cope in the Parc des Princes, and I think we can get a result there. So I think any sort of lead would be good. I'd love a 2-goal lead, but I'd take a 1-goal lead right now tomorrow. And so there you go, 1-goal lead at the Emirates, and we'll go there and get the result, get a draw at the Parc des Princes.
Okay, brilliant. I don't think 1 goal is going to be enough, but
no,
we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think, I don't know. I think we need at least a 2-goal cushion. I had this vision that we were going to play the same way we did against Real Madrid at home, like just really kill the game off in the first leg. I think Arsenal need to do that again, because, like you said, the Parc des Princes is a cauldron, and we've seen them just play beautiful football there. So I don't know. We'll see. Matt, what have you got coming up? This is where everyone can follow you, right? I've got that right. Your handle, as the kids say. Yes,
my handle, absolutely, at Matt Spiro. What have I got coming up? I don't know. Not a lot really for you guys to be logging onto. I've got some Ligue 1 commentaries coming up. French Cup final, I'll be commentating. I'm reporting at the game for beIN Sports at the Parc des Princes. I'm not at the Emirates tomorrow, but I'll be at the second leg. So I'll be I'll have the privilege of holding a microphone in front of Mikel and one other Arsenal player, and I'll be praying that we've got some positive things to talk about.
Brilliant. And even though he's a French football expert, covers PSGs in France, I hope you've enjoyed the fact that Matt has said "we" throughout this entire show, squaddies. So show Matt some love. Stick around, though. I'm going to carry on a little bit. Matt, thank you again for your generous time and your insights.
My allegiances, Sophie, are very, very clear on this one. And if I had to pick a French team, it would be Marseille. So, there's no PSG blood in me.
Love it. Thank you so much, Matt. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Sophie. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye. That's Matt Spiro. Great guy. Love Matt. And just, he's did some really special stuff with Arsene Wenger. He's an award-winning writer. Please go follow him, show him some love. And showing him some love right here now in the chat as well. I wanted to just stay on for a few minutes because there was some, I know that there's been a lot of, I don't know if it's vitriol. It's just like strong feelings and comments about our captain, Martin Odegaard, over the last few weeks in this season. I think because he was so good last season, the downfall, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Downfall? I don't think it's been a downfall, but the lack of form, I should say, has been really evident. But I also think if you take a closer look, he's still been importantly effective. And other players, do you remember when Saka used to carry this team on his shoulders? And then you get players like Saliba and Gabriel, and you've got Declan Rice, and there's less pressure on Saka to have to carry the team all the time. And there are some players where you just want them to do their job. I think it's a time now, though, where Odegaard needs to step it up a gear. And you know how much I love him. I'm a huge fan. I've always been a massive Odegaard supporter. But it's in these games where you can't work in the shadows. I don't mind players working in the shadows. But it's in games like this where you need the X factor players to shine, which is why I said to Matt, some of the PSG potential, just score a goal out of nothing type of players, we don't do that enough. And you really need that out of a number 10. And I think Odegaard needs a seminal moment in this semi-final, whether it's at the Emirates or whether it's in Paris. He needs to have a moment. He really does. And that's not me picking on him. I love the guy. And maybe he's not the same since he's come back from injury. People talking about the ankle and weights and some rumors about him being vegan now and all that type of stuff. It doesn't matter. He's the captain of Arsenal Football Club, and he needs to. The example that a lot of fans gave was when Thomas Partey got that card. Declan Rice, he looked like he wanted to kill him in a good way. And that leadership is what some Arsenal fans gives them fodder for the narrative of Declan Rice should be our captain. This isn't about being captain. This is about the quality of the player we know, right? There's a lot of leaders out there now on the pitch. Whether they're vocal or not, they're leaders. Some of them are quiet leaders. Some of them are noisier leaders. Declan has a little bit of the old school English captain thing, which is, I think, what some fans like. David Raya is a leader for me. Saka's a leader. You know, when Havertz was playing, he was a leader. Timber, I think, is a quiet leader. Some players lead by how they play, and others lead by being vocal all the time. And I don't care about the captain part. I want to see Odegaard shine. I want to see something where he takes over a game. We talk about Dembele, right? You stop him, you can stop PSG. You know, if you stop Odegaard, you don't stop Arsenal this season, because there are other players playing better than him and shining above him, right? So I just believe that, you know, for me, I want to see Odegaard have a big moment and a big game, because we've seen Saka do it. You know, we've even seen Mikel Merino do it. He's been at the club just a short period of time. What a performance against Real Madrid. You know, Saka comes back and right away, bosh, he's effective. He's changing the game. And Odegaard definitely had a couple of moments. His interpassing, the way he can split a defense, there's no doubt about that. I'm talking about massive moment. Like, Martinelli had a great moment against Real Madrid. He needed that. That gives him belief. That gives him confidence. It was a beautiful thing to see. Saka misses a penalty, goes on to score a brilliant goal. You know, Mikel Merino asks the players a 9, delivers, midfield, 2 assists. I want to see Odegaard do that. Lone Star, love you. But this is the problem, right? Martin Odegaard has completed more through balls than any other player in the Premier League this season. He's also completed more final third passes than any other midfielder. We're 555 points behind Liverpool. He scored 15 goals last season. He is not the same player. And some of these stats, you know, I'm old school Generation X. Sometimes I'm an eye test girl, right? What is my eyes telling me from what I see? I talked about this. He makes great passes. He splits defenses. But it's the big moment. He takes a lot of bad shots. Bad shots. I want a stat, Lone Star, where I want to know how many shots that Martin Odegaard takes are deflected. Where's that stat? All I'm asking, I'm not picking on him. I want him to have a big moment. Declan Rice, what a moment. That's what I'm talking about. Where is that moment for Martin Odegaard? Where's the Martinelli, Declan Rice, Merino, and Saka moment? All of these little stats that everyone throws at me and the XGs and all that type of stuff, I want to see him shine so bright and take over a game. Martin Odegaard has 7 assists in his last 10 appearances for club and country. Our captain. Yeah, great. That's great. Assists are important. And sometimes an assist is like the most ridiculous stat as well, by the way. I'm not saying Odegaard's in the last 10 games. I want him to take over a game, Lone Star. That's what I want. I want him to have one of those games where you're like, holy crap. He was the Don. He bossed it because he's got it in him. And we need him more than ever because PSG have a couple of Dons themselves that could take over a game. Saka's taken over a game. You know? I want to see that from Martin Odegaard. Anyway, let's get some more comments up. I test against lower teams. He's mustard against big teams. He goes missing. BX Gunner says 100. Fans watch football with stats these days. It's sad. Honestly, it's crazy. And Lone Star knows how much I adore him. He got in trouble last week, but we sorted it out. Cliff says, you're not wrong, Soph. Boy needs to toughen up vocally and physically. Less time giving it the Brill cream. And also this. Albert talked about it. Don't try and G up the crowd. They'll do that themselves. Just get on with your game. Play football. You get them to do this by how you play. He's the player I'm looking at the most. He's the player. Leeds Gunner says, leadership isn't just measured by stats. His leadership is also measured in character. Personally, I think he's carrying an injury and he's keeping it quiet. And you know what? I think we're going to find this out at the end of the season. Something's not right. And so maybe I'm asking too much. Because if he is injured, that's, but also we've got to be careful. Look what we did to Martinelli and Look what happened to Martinelli and Havertz and Saka. And now Gabby, big Gabby. Yeah. And Mikel Merino has had a better season. He really has. Odegaard at times is playing scared. Agree. He does lead by example, 100%. Carol, hello. How was the swim today? If Odegaard plays well, the team plays well. He needs to stop trying to G up the crowd and focus on his game. I agree with you. Jeff doesn't want Trossard up front. Totally agree with you, Sophie. Fingers crossed he does. Dropping in his high standard, Sophie, that's all. Still the best we have. Listen, you know how much I love him. Cliff says, guess I missed the French geezer. What did he say? Rewind it and listen. Funny. Christopher says his passing in recent weeks has been horrible, giving the ball away constantly. The only thing you can't question is his pressing. This is why he leads by example. This is why Waneri doesn't get games. This. And I know I was talking about Waneri earlier, but Mikel, he wants to squeeze everything. Martinelli, why does Martinelli play? He's tracking back. He's off the ball. Effort. Saka, the same. Kai Havertz, the same. I mean, he wants these guys to play with as much intensity off the board as they do on the ball. And that's why Waneri doesn't start. That's why we're not seeing him get more games. That's why Odegaard might be overplayed at times. But this, Christopher, is 100% correct. Yeah, we got that. Let's see. A couple more comments. Facts. He's also a recent parent. Family life can have an effect on your playing. Come on now. I worked with a very famous writer, director, and producer who has 4 kids and award-winning. When he is writing a script or has to finish a script, he checks himself into a hotel to finish it, just to be laser focused. Now, I'm not saying Martin Odegaard should check himself into a hotel. What I'm saying is that you have enough resources and money at times to just shut yourself off a little bit, right? There are a lot of football players who have kids and become parents. And a lot of people have kids and don't have the resources that Odegaard does. So, Matthew, I hear you, but I'm not buying it. Yeah, fans are acting like he gave birth. Let me tell you, his wife is the one that is suffering the most, no doubt about it. Okay, so here's what's going to happen for the rest of the week, kids. All right. Tomorrow we're going to be together, be here after the final whistle. We are going to hopefully be talking about a great performance and a great result. So make sure that you tune in. I'll put everything up. We'll go live immediately after the game and we'll bust through it together, right? We'll huddle, we'll cuddle, and everyone will have their say in our football democracy. That's how we work here. Then on Wednesday, I have a guest, which I might move to next week, actually, because I want to carry on the theme of Arsenal and PSG. On Thursday, we have Jordan Jarrett Bryan coming on. So look out for that as well. Basically, what I'm saying to you is that Highbury Squad's going to be going live every single day this week. All right. So please look out for the alerts. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. To all of the new subscribers, I tell you something, I was really encouraged, and it was a beautiful thing, because there's over close to 5,000 views for the post game on the Arsenal women, and I loved it. And there are a lot of new subscribers that came in through our coverage for the women, which is a beautiful thing. So please go check out Albert's video, which went live this morning UK time as well, his take. And Albert's been so hugely supportive of our women's coverage. And, you know, Annie can say whatever she wants, and I'll have my say on that on another show. But I've always said that the women's game has grown because of the love and support of men. That is a fact. And Albert and Demian have been hugely supportive. They love the women's game. They know their stuff. And it's really cool to watch. So all of the new subscribers who've come on, thank you so much. Got some great messages from Barcelona fans as well. Thank you to all of you. We're looking forward to an amazing game in Lisbon on May 24th. And we'll have some special guests leading up to that as well. So go check our post-game coverage. We really appreciate that too. And share this one with your friends. Matt talked about some really cool stuff about Vitinha, Dembele, the effects of the PSG that we played earlier on in the season versus the PSG we played now. Luis Enrique's kind of personality and persona and what that means for this team and how his team regards him. The lack of goals of late, the loss of form in April. Please do share it with your mates as well. So, Renee Sleggers is the Don, and Super Mariona is just one of the best signings ever. This, and Leah Williamson said it, didn't she? Kim Little, absolutely unbelievable. And to see a player like Kim Little make the Champions League final is just amazing. We were talking about this earlier. Imagine both Arsenal teams in the Champions League final. They were outstanding. All of the team, they just absolutely deserve it. All right, listen, try and keep it together until tomorrow night, okay? And well done once again to our Arsenal women, and congratulations to Liverpool for winning the Champions League. I love that this one, just like 2 Premier Leagues, but they've won quite a lot of titles, and they've equaled Manchester United now. Fair play to them. They were the best team over the season. So we say congratulations. But we'll end it on our women again. Just an amazing, amazing achievement. We're so proud of them, guys. And there's a lot to be excited about. Look, where we wanted to be relevant, right? And we're relevant at the right time of the season, both our men's and women's team. Now we need our men to rock and roll the same way the women did. I think we can do this. There's something in the air, as Alid, what was that kid's name? No, that was Walking in the Air. Anyway, take care until tomorrow night. Love you, squaddies. At ease, everyone. At ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Lone Star, you're cracking me up.